Mexico is not just a land of mountains, deserts, and jungles. It is a living archive of humanity's most unique genetic story. Every face in the crowd, every village hidden in the hills, carries pieces of an ancestry unlike anywhere else on Earth. Here, DNA does not whisper in one language, it sings in many. From the first Americans who crossed into this land more than 15,000 years ago, to the Maya who mapped the stars, the Aztec who raised empires, the Spaniards who sailed across oceans, and the Africans who arrived in chains but left unbreakable legacies, Mexico became a meeting ground of worlds. This fusion did not erase identities. It created something extraordinary. Mexican DNA is one of the most intricate and diverse genetic tapestries on the planet, holding clues to survival, adaptation, and history itself. But what exactly makes it so unique? And why does the story written in Mexican blood stretch across continents and millennia? Ancient origins, the first Mexicans, long before pyramids rose above the jungles, before the Aztec and Maya carved their names into history, the first footsteps echoed across the land we now call Mexico. Around 15,000 years ago, small groups of hunter-gatherers crossed the frozen bridge of Beringia, leaving Siberia behind and entering a new world. They carried stone tools, fire, and something even more enduring: genes that would seed the Americas as they moved south. Some settled in the valleys, others in the mountains, deserts, and coasts of Mexico. Over thousands of years, isolation and environment sculpted their DNA into something extraordinary. Different groups adapted in unique ways, leaving behind distinct genetic fingerprints that still exist today. The Nahua of central Mexico, the Maya of Yucatan, the Zapotec of Oaxaca, and countless other indigenous nations each carry their own genetic signatures. These are not just subtle variations, they are deeply regional, shaped by ecology, diet, and even altitude. A highland community developed adaptations for thin air, while coastal populations evolved immune defenses against tropical diseases. Genetic studies reveal rare mitochondrial DNA lineages, such as A2 and C1, that trace back to the very first Americans. These markers are like time capsules, direct links to the moment humanity stepped onto new soil at the edge of the Ice Age. By the time great civilizations like the Olmec, Maya, and Aztec flourished, Mexico had already become a genetic mosaic, each city, valley, and village adding threads to a web that stretched across Mesoamerica. Trade routes carried not only goods, but genes, connecting peoples from Honduras to central Mexico. This deep indigenous foundation is why Mexican DNA is so unique. It is not just one lineage, but thousands, layered, resilient, and still alive today. But this ancient story was only the beginning. Soon, ships would arrive on Mexico's shores, carrying not only swords and steel, but bloodlines from across the ocean, the collision of worlds. In 1519, sails appeared on the horizon. The Spanish had arrived. But they did not come alone. They brought with them the weight of Europe, Africa, and even Asia. And in the centuries that followed, Mexico's DNA would be transformed in ways the world had never seen. The Spaniards themselves were not a single uniform people. Many came from southern Spain, already carrying a blend of Iberian, Moorish, and Jewish ancestry. When they mixed with Mexico's indigenous populations, a new identity was born: the Mestizo. This was not just a cultural blending, but a genetic revolution, an entirely new layer woven over the ancient base. But the Spanish were not the only ones to arrive. Through the Atlantic slave trade, tens of thousands of Africans were brought to Mexico, particularly to regions like Veracruz, Guerrero, and Mexico City. Their DNA, primarily West and Central African, entered the Mexican gene pool, often through maternal lines passed down for generations. Even today, the African legacy is strongest in coastal regions, where music, food, and faces still reflect this powerful ancestry. Then came a lesser-known chapter: The Manila galleons, for over 250 years, massive ships sailed between the Philippines and Acapulco, carrying goods, sailors, and settlers across the Pacific. Some stayed, and their descendants blended into the Mexican population. Subtle traces of Filipino and Chinese DNA are still detectable in modern Mexicans, a reminder of how global trade silently shaped identity. Colonial Mexico became a true crossroads of the world. Indigenous, European, African, and Asian lineages all converged here, layered into one of the most complex genetic tapestries ever recorded. Unlike other regions where one ancestry dominated, Mexico's DNA absorbed them all, never erasing, always expanding. And yet, despite this massive upheaval, the indigenous foundation never disappeared. In some regions, it remained almost untouched, preserved in valleys, mountains, and jungles far from colonial centers. This endurance would give Mexican DNA its most unique trait: the ability to change and yet remain deeply rooted at the same time. Survival and isolation. Colonialism changed everything, but it did not erase Mexico's roots. In the face of war, disease, and forced assimilation, many indigenous communities survived by retreating to the places outsiders could not easily reach. Remote valleys, dense jungles, high mountains, and vast deserts. Here, in these pockets of isolation, DNA became a time capsule. Some populations in Oaxaca, Chiapas, and Yucatan still carry over 90% indigenous ancestry today, remarkably close to the genetic profile of their ancestors thousands of years ago. It is as if the ancient world is still alive in their blood. Isolation shaped these communities in powerful ways. Through genetic drift, where small populations evolve uniquely over generations, rare traits emerged. Highland groups developed genetic adaptations for efficient oxygen use at altitude, much like Tibetans in the Himalayas. Coastal groups, meanwhile, carry immune system markers that help them fight tropical diseases. Even daily survival left its imprint. Centuries of maize-based diets selected for genetic traits that regulate blood sugar differently, a legacy that still influences modern health in Mexico. Some ancient adaptations protect, while others contribute to higher risks of conditions like diabetes today. Language, too, often mirrors genetics. In regions where Nahuatl, Zapotec, or Maya are still spoken, strong indigenous DNA continuity is found. The words spoken, the food eaten, and the genetic code carried in the veins all align in one story of endurance. This survival is not just biology, it is resilience. Despite epidemics that killed millions, despite forced conversions, despite centuries of colonial rule, the genetic foundation of Mexico endured. The original peoples are not just history. They are still very much here, shaping identity in ways visible and invisible. But DNA is not only a record of survival, it is also a record of adaptation. And hidden in the Mexican genome are secrets that science is only just beginning to uncover. The science of adaptation. Every strand of DNA carries a story. But in Mexico, some of those stories are nothing short of astonishing. Modern science is beginning to uncover adaptations in Mexican populations that reveal just how resilient and unique this genetic tapestry truly is. For instance, researchers have found rare gene variants in indigenous Mexican groups that regulate blood sugar in unusual ways. These likely evolved over centuries of maize-based diets, where survival depended on efficiently processing carbohydrates with little fat or protein. Ironically, this same adaptation may also explain why modern Mexicans face higher risks of type 2 diabetes when exposed to today's processed foods. Highland communities tell another story. Living thousands of feet above sea level, many carry genetic traits that boost lung function and oxygen efficiency in thin air. It is an adaptation remarkably similar to those found in the Andes of South America. and even the Himalayas, evidence of how human biology bends to the demands of the land. The immune system, too, bears Mexico's genetic fingerprint. Some indigenous groups carry rare immune variants that strengthen resistance to diseases like tuberculosis and other infections. These traits may have been shaped long before European contact, forged in the crowded ancient cities of Teotihuacan and Tenochtitlan, where dense populations created their own microbial battlegrounds. These discoveries aren't just fascinating, they are changing medicine. Genetic studies in Mexico are helping scientists design personalized treatments, refine regional health strategies, and deepen our understanding of how humans adapt to their environments. Mexican DNA, in other words, is not only preserving the past, it may be unlocking the future of medicine. But the story doesn't end within Mexico's borders. Over the last 2 centuries, millions carried this unique DNA across oceans and continents, spreading its legacy worldwide. The global legacy. In the last 2 centuries, millions of Mexicans have carried their ancestry beyond the mountains and valleys of their homeland. From the Bracero program of the 1940s to modern migration, families crossed into the United States, Canada, and Europe, bringing with them culture, memory, and DNA. Today, Mexican Americans form the largest Latino community in the U.S., and genetic studies show their DNA still carries the deep indigenous base layered with Spanish, African, and even Asian ancestry. Some lineages can still be traced back to specific villages in Oaxaca, Veracruz, or Yucatan, connecting entire families to ancestral homelands across generations. But the reach goes further. Mexican DNA appears in places as unexpected as Italy, Germany, and beyond, carried by migration, marriage, and adoption. Like echoes across oceans, the genetic legacy of Mexico continues to expand, tying together people who may not even know the ancient history written in their blood. This is what makes Mexican DNA so extraordinary. It is not just a mix. It is a masterpiece, a living memory of survival, adaptation, and connection. It reminds us that identity is never simple, never one thread, but a weaving of many, each one carrying a story, each one refusing to be forgotten. So, the next time you wonder who you are or where you come from, remember this. Mexico's DNA is not only history, it is humanity itself, stitched into one of the most unique genetic tapestries in the world.